How can we help our clients find an inner oasis for times of uncertainty? According to Dr. Rick Hanson, there are two useful ways to look at uncertainty, and he puts a premium on finding reliable spaces in life that clients can take refuge in. Here he reveals what creates a strong refuge. And to do that, he ties it to a powerful lesson that he learned from TV's Mr. Fred Rogers.
So the topic of uncertainty is actually near and dear to me personally because it links with a fundamental interest in impermanence, in the ways in which all experiences pass away, certainly, and are insubstantial, made up of many parts, in the technical sense, empty, and therefore incapable, as experiences, as our phenomenology, of being a reliable basis for lasting happiness. We have to step out of any kind of attachment to or clinging to, certainly craving for, particular experiences and find other more reliable refuges and resources for ourselves to have any kind of lasting happiness in this life, etc. So it's a real interest of mine, as well as someone with two young adult children, and looking back at human history and looking forward at some of the possibilities in the future, living with uncertainties. Also as someone who's aged and has had health problems. You get older, all eddies disperse eventually. I had a surgeon client of mine who once said in the OR, we have a saying, Rick, all bleeding stops eventually, one way or another. And so, how do we live with that, including the inevitability of being separated one day or many days in different ways from those we love through their passing or our own. So, it's a deep topic. And I think about it in two kinds of ways. First, in terms of what is uncertainty. On the one hand, if you look back over your life, and if you look in the lives of most people, there's a kind of loose or rough continuity. Causes and conditions tend to produce relatively predictable results much of the time, right? I'm going to talk about the second truth in a moment. But the first truth is you could call it rough continuity or rough justice, a rough linkage between effort and results, for better or worse, a rough continuity, the best predictor of the future is the past, and so forth. So that's one refuge, actually, for dealing with uncertainty, that if you look back over your life, with many important exceptions in terms of certain people, most seconds of most people's lives, when they look backwards, were basically okay. They weren't million-dollar moments, probably, but they were basically all right. There was enough air to breathe. There was enough water to drink. They were in a field of relatedness with others, albeit imperfectly. They were basically okay. As I put it, you're basically all right now. Looking backwards, you were basically all right in most moments. And in this moment now, you're probably basically all right as well. And in most moments to come, you will probably be basically all right. And being okay with being just basically all right is, of course, an important step here. So that's part one about uncertainty. But the other part, too, is at any moment, the movie can stop. At any moment, that phone can ring. Without getting too weird about it, as someone who's quite interested in my case, I have been interested in history a lot, and I'm really pretty knowledgeable about, current socio-political history and so forth. We're half an hour away from thermonuclear war at all times between the U.S. and Russia. And you just don't know. And I think part of maturity in general, and it becomes a specific clinical issue for people in certain situations, finding a way to live with and be at peace about the uncertainty of what the next minute or hour or nanosecond or year will bring, and finding a way to live with that with your heart wide open, still finding a core of contentment and interest in continuing to contribute, even while you know that you don't know what will come from your efforts. Will they ever bear fruit? So what to do about that? I want to offer two general points and then talk about a particular person that this topic really brings to mind. In terms of what to do about it, so the first thing for me is to really ask yourself, what is reliable? What can I take refuge in? Knowing that there's so much that's out of my control, knowing that there's so much that's completely unpredictable. The both terrifying and wonderful news is that you are a bit player in most other people's lives. They really just don't care that much about you. It's both horrifying and weirdly freeing. So how can you be about that? In that larger context, what is reliable? What can you take refuge in? As both a place of protection and sanctuary and a place of refueling, your pit stop as you go through life. And then you look at that. I think people find different refuges. Some of them are external and that's less reliable, but still pretty good. My backyard is a real refuge. It looks out onto open space where I live in Northern California. I'm seeing it right now on the other side of this camera. It's a place of refuge for me. The love of my wife is a refuge. Our son came by last night we're still trying to figure out if she's actually a girlfriend. He's 28, she's probably about 26, 7, and was 8, who knows. But anyway, these are refuges. Different refuges like that. Refuge of bubble baths, good chocolate, your favorite TV show. There's a place for those things. More reliable yet are the refuges you can find inside yourself that you acquire over time as traits. You develop them over time. You can look inside, and the refuge of mindfulness, being able to experience anything, no matter how horrible it is, in a vast, untroubled space of awareness, because awareness itself is never disturbed or damaged by what it represents. Another internal refuge, of course, is the felt sense of your own good heart, knowing that even though you do blow it, no halo necessary, there is a good heart in there. There are good intentions in there. There is endurance, virtue, effort over time, dogged, hanging in there with a friend in need, waking up in the middle of the night to walk your child back to sleep. There is that good heart in you over time. That's something too you could take refuge in. For many people, they have a sense of something transcendental, something outside the natural frame that is actually unchanging. It's not conditioned. It's not conditional. And so they can take refuge in that by whatever name they might use, including God. That's a refuge. Another refuge for people is a sense of warm-heartedness. No matter what changes in the future, those who have loved you will always have loved you. I think about Mr. Rogers' acceptance speech for his Lifetime Emmy Award. You can see it on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, bring a box of Kleenex. It's very touching. And I'll just tell you, here is a key part of it. He asks people in this glittering audience of thousands of TV stars and movie stars with perfect makeup and lots of plastic surgery as well. He asks them to just bring to mind for 10 seconds someone who has loved them into being. He says, don't worry, in his Mr. Rogers way, I'll keep time. So 10 seconds of silence on national TV, almost unthinkable. And you can see people, initially they're shocked, and then, the tears begin to flow as they bring to mind beings who have loved them into being. That's a refuge. You cannot take that away from you. Even if the relationship was imperfect, perfect love in imperfect relationships. So that's a real refuge for you. So I really invite people in my practice. I put this in a very secular frame unless it's really appropriate not to for people. Just to explore. I use different language often. What's your safe space? What's your home base? Where's your pit stop? Where are your inner oases? What are those places both outside you, but especially inside you that you can draw upon in this world of changes, and by definition, limits to predictability and limits to controllability.
When clients are able to access these reliable, safe spaces, it can help them to, as Rick would say, live with their heart wide open. Now, what do you think? How are you going to use these ideas in your work today? Please leave a comment below, and I'll see you tomorrow.